Okay, in this section, I want to talk to you about setting stretch goals. Okay, now a stretch goal essentially means it's a goal that in order for me to imagine that, in order for me to achieve that, it's a little bit of a stretch of the imagination. Okay, because I think that is where it starts to kind of pull you out of your comfort zone. That is where you can see extreme progress when you start to have your eyes set on a goal that is a little bit beyond where you feel like you are right now. A little bit beyond where you feel comfortable saying you'll be in a month or 2 months. Okay, I do believe heavily in stretch goals because they've made a big difference for me. I've had many goals that I've set over the years that for me have come true because I actually had smaller goals that were set up along the way, and then I had a major goal that was set up here. And even if I didn't make it to the major goal, because I set a stretch goal, I pushed through some of these other smaller goals that I could have easily set as my main objective, my main goals, and I would have been okay just achieving those things. But I had my eyes set on something bigger. So in order to set goals, and especially a stretch goal, I think it's important that you do have to be somewhat realistic. You can't just say, hey, I want to have 5,000 yards receiving this year. Nobody's ever done that. And that's okay that nobody's ever done it, but it's not realistic in terms of what receivers are actually able to accomplish in a given offense, in a given season with only 10 games or 12 games or 15 games. Okay, so what I'm looking at is what's considered a really good season for a receiver. I always use the 1,000-yard marker as kind of that number that jumps off to me. And then even more so than that, I look at least for me, this is my own personal goals. This is not something that you have to do, but I had very high standards for myself. And so my goal was always, I want to have 100 yards a game. That's my goal. I'm shooting for that. And now keep in mind that when I'm setting goals, I don't want to be so dead set on me achieving my specific goal that I sabotage anything that's team related. Okay, I do believe if you have a bunch of guys that are driven on a team that have set goals for themselves, they have ambitions and they are really chasing after those, that your team as a whole will be better so long as each of these players are committed to the team first. So if you have a goal that's 100 yards a game and you have 70 yards a game, don't be sulking around because you didn't get 100 yards, but just know that we're resetting that goal for the next week, and that's the thing that we're striving towards. So if I've got a 10-game season and I want to get 100 yards a game, that's my goal. At the end of that year, if I achieve my goal, I had 1,000 yards receiving. But even if I had 600 yards receiving, that's really good. And I think that that's a lot more than what somebody would get if they just said, well, I don't really care how many I have this season. I don't care how many catches I have. I just want to do my best, and I just want to have fun out there. And I do think that it's important, extremely important, to have fun, but I think it's important to set certain measurable goals that you can have your eyes on and try to chase. Because what it did for me is that when I'd catch a ball, I would remember these goals that I had, something in the back of my mind. I knew that I had certain big goals that I wanted to accomplish. And so I would catch that ball, and I wouldn't just drop to the ground right away. I would have my legs driving. I would turn around and try to see if I could find an avenue to get to the end zone, because it was no longer just a catch and drop to the ground. It was a catch, and I've got to find a way to get to the end zone because I've got big goals. I've got big standards for myself. And I think, and obviously I wanted to win the game for my team. And I think that in these little moments throughout the game, when a ball is in the air, you're thinking about, in the back of your mind, you're thinking about these goals that you've set for yourself, and it's going to give you that extra push. It's going to give you courage in certain moments to go across the middle. It's going to give you courage when you catch that hitch route to try to make a guy miss and run 80 yards for a touchdown. So I think it's really important that you set stretch goals. Okay, what I always try to do is I will set these goals toward the front of the season. If it's possible, I would set these goals, a few weeks before the season at least, so that I can kind of lead myself toward the season and start rehearsing these things so that they're clear in my memory. And what I'll try to do is I'll use something called a vision board, which is basically a cork board. I'll have a picture of that for you guys that will be displayed on the actual video itself. And what you do on there is you set certain goals for yourself. So if I want 1,000 yards this year, what I can do is I can write 1,000 yards really big in text. I can print it out, I can get a thumbtack, and I can put that thumbtack on that cork board. Or let's say that I'm trying to strive to be and emulate a certain receiver or a certain player. Or let's say that I'm trying to strive to be and emulate Or let's say that I want to emulate my game around a certain receiver. Let's say that I really love watching Tyreek Hill and I'm a really fast player, I'm really quick twitch, and I love to make guys miss in the open field. Okay, now what would make a whole lot of sense is if I want to emulate him, okay, what I'll do is I'll print out my favorite picture of him and I'll put it on that court board. Okay, and some of you guys may think this is cheesy, but I'm telling you, it's one of those things where you are consistently giving your subconscious mind something to think about, something to chew on. And it's continually in a loop in the back of your head. These goals that you set for yourself, these players that you want to try to emulate. Okay, when you have these things in front of you, these are things that it's like a loop in the back of your head. It's like whenever you listen to a song and you notice that you're humming that song all throughout the day. You're humming that same song the next day or 2 days later. It's because even though it's not in the forefront of your mind, it's in your subconscious mind and it's playing on a loop. And that's why it's so important, the things that you're telling yourself. So important, the things that you put into your mind. And I think that these things will make a massive difference for you as you start to set your stretch goals. Pair that with your vision board and you'll print off certain things that relate to your goals and you'll put them on there and you'll put it in your room or in a place that's well traveled. Okay, you'll put it there and you'll pass by it every day. And even if you're not actively just sitting down and looking at it, your eyes will gaze past that vision board and it will reinforce those goals that you have for yourself and they'll continue to play on that loop in the back of your mind. Okay, another thing that I like to do, and some of you, may not have heard of this before, but I like to pair certain things with a smell. So that could be a certain oil or a certain cologne, or it could be the smell of anything specific, grass or leather or coffee, some specific smell, and I want to put that next to or onto my vision board so that every time I pass that, I get that smell. Okay, and I'm thinking about those visions. I'm thinking about those goals that I've set for myself. And then what I want to do is I want to take that same smell, whatever that is that I'm using for that, and it's got to be very specific to this. I'm going to take that and I'm going to have that with me as I go into practice. I'm going to have that with me as I go into game, and I want to smell that thing just one time, whatever it is. I want to smell that as I go into practice, as I go into these games, because that's going to remind me, it's going to flood back those memories of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And will give me that extra push and that extra desire to stay committed to my goals that I've set for myself.